Hello, thank you, Sophia. Good afternoon, everyone. A reminder, as always, you can get a lot of resources on EPIS's website. That's epis.psu.edu. And please don't forget to like us on Facebook as well. That is the best way that you can get the latest information about PAYS, plus other great EPIS information can be found on that Facebook page as well. Also, for those of you who are just jumping in, I'm going to remind everyone that we would, as always, ask you to introduce yourself in the chat: name, position, agency, or school district. Just something about you. We will be, as Sophia said, we will be using the chat feature today to engage with all of you to get some questions answered. And we will also be using the polls as well. So go ahead and advance me, Sophia. Thank you. And here is our team. With you today is Sophia, myself, Alise is here with us as well, and Phyllis. So thanks for being here, team. And we will be managing the Q&A. So if you have any questions as we're going through, please feel free to go ahead and throw that in the question and answer feature in the webinar, and we'll try to use the chat for other communication. So I'm going to kick it over to Alise. If you want to give us, we're going to start as promised with an update from our PAYS panel. So Sophia, I'm sorry, Alise, take it away.
Thank you very much. The PAYS panel is something that we actually just updated the description on our webpage. So it's not up there. And I don't know, Sophia, if you can share your screen, but the PAYS panel is something that we use this arena, and we use the PAYSAG, the advisory group, and we have the PAYS panel, because we really want to get the feedback from the boots on the ground, from the people who are here that are involved in the schools that may not be able to come to the webinar, may not be able to join us on a frequent basis. And one of the options is, I think it's down there at the bottom, Sophia. Yeah, there we go, is the PAYS panel. And the PAYS panel is something that when we are thinking of decisions and we need advice, and the advisory group is working towards something, maybe a change in the PAYS, maybe looking at different reporting methods, maybe questions that you think, I really would like this. That type of feedback is what we're looking for across the state. So the PAYS panel is something that is basically a technology, email, very brief survey that's going to be like maybe 2 or 3 questions, maybe up to 5, depending on what we're doing, but a very brief, usually email, Survey Monkey or response that comes in. Probably we've been using Qualtrics as the survey design, so we can gather that information and put it in an easily accessible document for us to move forward with. I know a few people have done, I think right now I have 60 people on that list. And about once a month, depending, like I said, on what is happening with the PAYS, we do send out some surveys and some inquiries for looking at what you would like to see. What are you seeing in your schools? What are you seeing there? Sophia, you can go ahead and click on that. So the link is right there. And it's a simple process. It is just first name, last name, email, what school you're with, where you're at, are you familiar with the PAYS, kind of just that initial information. And then, like I said, if you get a chance to answer the survey when I send it, great. If you can't, understood. We're happy to get 25%. We'd love to get 100, but it's very nice to have that feedback from people who do not have the capacity to take an hour and a half of their week to join us. And I know that the interest in PAYS right now is definitely increasing. We have a lot of data. It's been discovered that we have all of this data and that it can be used for many purposes. So we have a lot of people who are digging deep into the data, and we're also looking at our scales and looking at the questions and what are we missing? What pieces are missing? And that's kind of a big piece of where we're moving into 2027. So if you are interested and if you would be able to, you can sign up to the PAYS panel. We'll make sure that link does go out in the follow-up webinar or the follow-up MailChimp next Wednesday. So you will be able to sign up if you would like to. If you know of anybody who has some interest in the PAYS and they're in the schools, please pass it along to them. Like I said, hopefully not a heavy lift for anybody, and you can join and be a part of PAYS and input and help us with your input so we know what we need to be looking at, because we all have a different lens, right? So we're all looking through in a different way. So that's it for the PAYS panel. And then the next one is, of course, the PLP, which you all have heard if you've been in a webinar this year thus far, and we will continue to talk about it because it is definitely something that we want to really promote to touch everyone across the state, make sure that people know that it is available, that it is free training, it is free Act 48 credits, some social work credits. There are, what do we have? 17, how many courses are there right now? Is anybody?
14, I believe.
How many, Jeff?
I think
14?
it's 14, isn't it?
14. I was going to say 15. Yeah, so 14 are there. You can sign in. As you can see, we have continued to increase the registered learners. We're increasing the amount of courses that are coming, and moving forward for this webinar, Lee will actually be utilizing the PLP course that we have just released for the PAYS guide, and using your data with PAYS. So this is something that is open to you, that is available to anyone with an email address. You can sign up. It keeps track of your coursework. There are transcripts if you need a record, if you need, I know there were some teachers, people who had teaching certificates that maybe lost track of their credits, their Act 48 credits during COVID, and maybe need a couple credits here or there. This is a great opportunity for you to go in and do some online learning for the Act 48 credits. And there's a plethora of, some are short, some are long, some are in-depth, and we're continuing to grow the library. So don't hesitate to check in anytime that you are looking for something. As you know, we have SMART goals, there's the SDS theory, there's a lot of information there. And also we're looking at resources. So we're continuing to develop a resource library. So anything that is supporting the courses, supporting those of you in the community looking at your prevention efforts, there are resources that are searchable. I know that there is a design coming up to make that easier, and make the PLP look a little bit different and function a little bit better. So be on the lookout for that. But anybody who is interested, please feel free, scan the QR code, click the link, and sign up if you haven't. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alise. So, as Alise had alluded to, we are going to talk about the PAYS guide today, but we are also going to talk about how that is hopefully made a little bit easier and better to utilize with the rollout of the newest PLP module, the PAYS, the secondary one. So, and then also, as Alise was saying, we have the original PAYS module on there as well. So please feel free to check that out if you're new to PAYS, or if you're not new to PAYS, but you need a little refresh. I think that that is a really great opportunity for you to learn the basics about the Pennsylvania Youth Survey. But today we're going to talk about this second module mostly. And before we get into that slide, I wanted to ask a couple questions for everybody to participate in the chat. So one of the things that we really want to know is, and we've been talking about this, I think this has come up on a First Wednesday webinar, is how do you get your PAYS information, your PAYS resources? So go ahead and throw that in the chat, and then I have a follow-up question. But what we want to know is, where do you go when you're looking for the PAYS guide, or information for parents, or information for schools? So if you could go ahead and throw that in the chat, that would be really great. Do you go to EPIS's website? Do you go to PCCD's website? I go to Google, and wherever it takes me,
that was
probably
great.
my favorite. I have to be honest with you, I have absolutely done that.
Absolutely right, Mary. I agree.
Bookmark it. Thanks, Amy. School district or EPIS website. Great.
And Lee, just one thing. Hey, everybody, it's Phyllis. We became aware recently. I see several of you say you're going to PCCD to their site, and they've been having a few challenges. So if you've been trying to get in and you can't get in, they're updating their website right now, a pretty extensive overhaul. And I know I live on that site, as I'm sure, or we hope many of you do. I've even had struggles getting in. So if you aren't able to get in, just keep trying and knowing that PCCD is just trying to make it better. So just wanted to give everybody a heads up about that.
Well, and that's a perfect transition, Phyllis. So thank you. What the next part of our question is, what are the challenges around finding PAYS resources? Whether it be, the Canva link that we've talked about a couple webinars ago on how to present your data, the PAYS guide. We really want to know what challenges or issues you are running into, or maybe it's you're having trouble finding a certain thing. Throw that in the chat. But go ahead and I'll give you about 30 seconds to fill the chat up with that information as well. And surprise to no one, this is what helps to drive the work that we're doing, not only on this webinar, but PaySag and all the work related to PAYS. So we are really gathering information in this space as well. I don't see a lot of challenges. Maybe it's just me, Alise.
I don't think it's just you.
Maybe it's user error on Lee's part.
Pulling out demographic data. Yeah. No, but again, that's good because our perspective, just like we had just talked about, our perspective is that we have a lot of resources and they're spread across PCCD, EPIS, maybe hidden under a little Easter egg in EPIS, like that you need to, find the drop down, find exactly where you're going. And it's been something that we have noted, but maybe it's not a big of a challenge as we think it is. Maybe it's something that we think it's an issue and it may not be. Now it's hard to, Brianna, hard to find exactly what you're looking for, specific information. Navigating the EPIS website. Yeah, there's a few more now. And I think, and this is what we needed to hear, because I think we feel like it is, Melanie, that's perfect. Melissa will be able to give resources to you. And I think that's where we're at. We have a lot of individuals that reach out to us for specific resources, or if we did the webinar and we have the Canva link, if you didn't save it, where can you find it? And that's something that is challenging because Google doesn't pick all that up all the time. You can Google, that you want the Canva link for the PAYS highlight report, and your answer is not going to be exactly where you want to go. So this is very helpful to us to make sure that we know what we're looking at for the struggles that you may have.
This is great. Thank you. So, like I said, all of this is going to be driving the work that we're doing moving forward. We can, include some assistance in a following First Wednesday webinar, but we want to make sure that the resources that are available are easy to find. And if we need to do some reorganizing, we're willing to do that. So now we are going to get into the content for today, the PAYS guide specifically. So I am going to ask Sophia to activate the poll for us. We have 2 questions on the poll that you're seeing, and we really want you to participate. So quick answer, have you ever used the PAYS guide and how-to workbook? Yes, no, or no, because I don't know where to find it. And then the second question is, if yes, what parts of the PAYS guide and how-to workbook have you used? And you can select all that apply on that. So you've got all the, if you've used the full from start to finish, that's an option. If you've never used it at all, that's an option. Maybe you've done some of the worksheets. Maybe you've earmarked a specific module and you've gone straight to that, whatever the case might be, we're going to ask you to have that information for us, please. And as you're doing that, I will pull up last time we did this.
I'll give you like 15 more seconds. See if you can answer those 2 questions.
All right, so let's dig into this a little bit. So we are around, we had about 50% of, so the last time we did a poll like this, it was in April of 2022. So we're talking like 2.5 years ago, we did a poll like this, and about over half had never used the PAYS guide. So we really want you to be able to use this at any capacity. So that's why we're doing today's webinar, and we've made the PLP module so that it makes the completion of the PAYS guide a little bit easier. So what we're looking at here is that about 24% of you have used it, and we're looking at, 70 something, 76 have not used it, and 27 because they don't know where to find it. So I think that that's definitely something to consider for us. I also want to draw everyone's attention to the results at the bottom. There was a big chunk, 73%, who said they have not used it. Only about 4 of you have used the full guide, 4 of you who have participated. And looks like some of you just jumped around, and about 13% of you were using the worksheets only. So thanks for participating in that. That is super helpful for us. And we're hoping, again, that what we're doing today and in the future is going to be helpful for you and make it easier for you to use. So the first thing it sounds like we have to do is make sure people know where to find it. And then you will be able to use it. So thank you, Sophia. So we're now going to get into the PLP module. And what we want to talk about is each piece, and we're going to go through, and I have some other questions that I'm going to ask you all to participate in the chat. So what you're looking at now is the beginning of the module. So you'll see in here a welcome. It's going to give you the course objectives. You're going to have an overview video, which I didn't want to show because it's also me, and that's a little bit cringe. So I didn't want to show that. To watch yourself on a video is super cringe. So I have but those are available. Those are also available on the website, EPIS website, separate from the module. So just a little plug for that. If you want to just watch the videos, you can do that on EPIS's website. And those can be found, Alise, in the Padlet, correct?
They can be found in the Padlet. So if you go to PAYS resources, there are YouTube library links. And if you click on those specific links, Sophia had them set up, and they're very nice that it is all the PAYS guide in order, and all of the YouTube web, and then all of the webinars are another link in order. So those are accessible to you. And Sophia just put that link in the chat if you're interested to look.
Thank you, Alise. So what you will find also on the course objectives are the purpose of the PAYS guide, the step-by-step process of analyzing data, what sections you can specifically look at in the PAYS guide, and then how you can use the PAYS results to change your prevention efforts or to affect your prevention efforts. So that is the outline of the course in its entirety. And I will also say just some tips is go ahead and download the PAYS guide before you start this process, because as you are working through the module, as you're working through the PLP lesson, you are going to want to be able to reference your PAYS guide as well. So have that on the ready, be ready to use that, fill it in, in real time, so that all of those things can work together. When you're working through the module, you're going to want to reference the PAYS guide, and you can pause the module and come back, so you can, watch the watch the PLP, go complete the module in the PAYS guide, and then you go right back into the PLP, log in, and you'll be where you left off. So the reason that we designed it in that way was very purposeful, because we wanted you to be able to have access to your PAYS guide and complete it in real time, but not have to be forced to go through the entire PLP lesson. You can take your time and walk through it and use it as a guide, especially as we're going to learn coming up is you're going to need to involve other people as well. So there's some work that they can be doing related to this module even before you start working on it as a group. Oh, can you go back to the last slide? Sorry, Sophia. And in lesson 1, so that's just the beginning, that was just the overview. In lesson 1, you're going to have an opportunity, or they're going to introduce the concept of the PAYS guide and give you an opportunity to reflect. So this lesson is all about introduction, more videos, PAYS to get started. This is just an introductory, and then it gives you some opportunity to reflect. So the lesson on getting started allows you to see what's ahead of you in the completion of the PAYS guide. So this gives you a quick overview of what to expect, essentially. Something else, thank you, Sophia, but something else I will point out is a nice feature of the module is you have an option to have it read to you. So if you want to read through it and follow along, you can absolutely do that, or you can have it read to you as well. So there will be some pausing and stopping when you're playing the video, obviously, but the option is there to have it read aloud to you. So in lesson 2, you are going to spend some time thinking about who will be on your team and familiarizing those team members with the tools that are available. So some of the people that are on your team might be new to PAYS. So my first suggestion is always have them watch that first PLP lesson on the PAYS, that introductory, that basics lesson. I would have them watch that first, and then before you even get into this portion. But at this stage of the PAYS guide, you're going to want to start developing your team. You're going to start thinking about the breakdown of the sections and who's going to review what sections. I think it's some good advice to sort of break it down by maybe some content experts. So the new sections of the PAYS report is a little different from what we're used to in previous PAYS reports. So there's some reorganizing related to mental health, substance use, gambling. It has its own section now. So I did want to spend a couple moments talking about that. I want to have everyone participate in the chat again. I'm going to say that I think it's a good idea to have people who are experts in the topic that they might be researching. Because what you're going to do is you're not going to have one person or even a small group of people look at every single section in the PAYS and work through this next process that I'm about to tell you about in the PAYS guide. It would be overwhelming. So something that you're going to want to consider to do is break it down into sections. So each section would be assigned to a person or a couple people. And I think it makes sense to put that assignment to someone who might have a little bit of content knowledge. So for example, the section on substance use, I'm going to ask you to participate in the chat, and I'm going to ask my fellow panel members to help me monitor that and to participate as well. Who in your community should be a part of this process as it relates to substance use? So throw that in the chat. Who do you think, what organization, what group, who at your school, what type of person or organization should be involved in analyzing the substance use section? Mikkel said DDAP. Great, thank you. SCA, SAP, the Student Assistance Program, love that. Treatment providers, prevention providers, coalitions, right? Coalitions. Great. Parents and guardians, love that. Juvenile probation. Law enforcement, excellent. Panelists, did I miss anything?
Nope,
All of
doing
the
great.
above.
This is a great list.
Yep, agreed. All right, so let's switch gears now. The next section is mental health. So what organizations, and you can do some repeats, but who should be involved in analyzing that section of the PAYS data, the mental health section? That faith-based organization, that might be holdover from the last, but I love that as an option. Intermediate units, great. Family-based providers, counselors, doctors, right? That's a good one. Pediatricians, mental health providers, that's all great. County behavioral health. Involving other school districts, I like that suggestion a lot. Bringing a group of school districts together that operate under the same IU and have that conversation, really good. Social workers, another great option. Now, the next one's going to be a little bit tougher. That would be the gambling section. So I'm going to ask you all to go ahead and throw that into the chat as well. Who should be involved in the analysis of your gambling data? What groups, organizations, types of people in your school? Addiction specialist, athletics, parents, Josh Urkel. Great. GA and Gamanon, that's great. Local casino, yes, I'm a very big fan of involving local casinos, and generally, they always want to help. Great. And then the last section that I want to get some help on is the community and school climate and safety. So that section, the community and school climate and safety section, who should be doing that work? Who should be the group or the organizations or the type of people in your school who should be a part of that conversation? Resource officers, great one. Students, excellent. Counselors, educators, parents, state police, local police, communities and schools. Excellent. Excellent. Panelists, anything else that you want to say about this section? Phyllis, you've unmuted yourself. Alise?
One of the questions I would have for everybody too is to think about where youth land in all of this. One of the you talk about content experts. Well, they're the content experts. It's their data. And I think that, I just would say that always keeping our finger on the pulse of when is the best time and the right time to include maybe a small group of youth. Maybe it's done more broadly with a summit type scenario where you let them process the data. But I would just say, understanding also that, bringing youth and adults together in a room is a great way, but it's also brings some challenges, and I would say just, always kind of keep that in the back of your head of when, as you're thinking about the best way to do this, and make sure you include those experts that are giving us the data in the first place.
Yes, and so thank you, Phyllis. That's great. And as Sophia has pointed out in the chat, the PLP also has 2 courses on good youth engagement practices and a 3rd one on the way. So some really great opportunities to get some resources on how to engage youth. And, to answer your question, Phyllis, I think every one of those sections that I talked about, youth should probably be involved in because they do know the best. And I think parents as well. I have parent groups up here on the screen, and I think getting those parent groups involved could be important to every one of those sections. Parent groups do have a lot of fundraisers, so there might be some opportunity to engage them in a problem gambling prevention conversation as you're doing this deep dive into data. So really, thank you, Phyllis. Any other panelists have anything?
Nope.
Thank you. All right, so moving on to our next section. This is lesson 3, and this is where you are going to begin to analyze your data. So you've got your group, right? You've got all your people that you've put together. You've got this team. And then this is going to be where you break up into smaller groups or individuals to do some of this analysis. So as what you're seeing on your screen currently, and I think that is large enough for me to see. I hope it's large enough for everybody else to see on Sophia's sharing. So Sophia, I won't need to share the PAYS guide. This is perfect. So what you're going to do is you're going to do this as many sections as there are in the PAYS report. So you'll number the section, you'll put the section title, and then they'll answer all of these questions. And then there is a second page as well. So each of those individuals or each of those groups will look at this information in that report and answer based on their section. So this is a really great way to access. This is a great time to use your module because you're going to be able to get an overview and you can share that information and they can review it themselves with your team members so that they're able to better fill this out. So once they have that and they have this tool available to you, found right in the PAYS guide, so you don't have to look anywhere separate. It is right at the end of the second module. So you'll be able to find that right there. And here, this is where you're going to start to hear the language about behaviors, perceptions, and attitudes. And what they'll be referred to a lot in the PAYS guide is BPAs. So that abbreviation means behaviors, perceptions, and attitudes. So you're going to focus on both what is going well in the school district or the county that you're identifying or the community that you're identifying, and also what's an opportunity. So like we talk about all the time on First Wednesday webinars, something that we can't forget is to celebrate successes. So that is going to be honored here through this process in this way. This is going to help you to start your conversation on what to focus on. This concept will be, you're going to hone that in a little bit further when you start to look at the next step. That's when you start to look at magnitude, time trends, severity, and comparison. Comparison to what? Comparison to your county, comparison to the state. This is where that's the next phase. And that's where all of this is going to come together. But this is preparing you for that experience. And we want to pause and answer Olympia's question I see in the chat. So why are school district data reports not accessible to everyone compared to state and county reports? And I'm going to kick it over to my friend Phyllis. She's already unmuted herself as she anticipated me to do so. So Phyllis, take it away.
And I was typing furiously, Olympia, trying to answer your question. Yeah, it's a really great question. And one of the things that we have an agreement with all school districts that they actually are the owners of the data. And so all of that level of data will go only directly to them. They can, while they're, when they're registering to take the PAYS, they can select specific people that they can share this with. But that really would be left up to them so that they really can control, what information is shared, when it's shared, and make it a part of their whole communication plan. We really do encourage and work with districts to be very transparent with the data. And this is why we do what we do today, letting them help them better understand what the data is saying, how to use it, and all those great things. Now, you absolutely have the right to reach out to them and ask for the data. Again, we always encourage to do that in a very collegial way, to say, hey, we want to work with you. We want to learn more. And certainly I've never heard, well, I should say never is too big of a word, but it's rare that when you reach out to a district that I haven't heard of an instance recently that they refuse to share it. You just have to reach out directly to them to help get that information. Did I answer your question, Olympia? Sorry, that was kind of a long answer there. Sorry about that.
And as Olympia's answering in the chat whether we're good, I wanted to also add on that something that I always do is oh good, we're good, Phyllis. She said thank you, that's helpful. So something that we always do too, or I always do when I'm asking for school district data, is I let them know that this doesn't go any further than myself or our coalition or whatever purpose that I'm using it for. But I usually always give that disclaimer, of course, so that they know. And to Phyllis's point, I've never had anyone tell me no.
Well, and Lee, you bring up a really good point. And back 15 years ago when I started working in PAYS and all that, schools were a little more reluctant because they weren't as familiar. They didn't really understand what all the 100 pages was saying. But correct. I think what you said there is so important. Really letting them know that, the purpose and why you want to use it, and really use it as a partnering, like I said, opportunity, and letting them know that you are not going, that what you're going to do with it is really helpful in that space. Also, since all of you, we know after Lee's great presentation today, you're going to start using the PAYS guide and working that, offer to help them, offer to say, hey, we'd love to help you understand your data and put the data to work. So really using PAYS as that place to bond and strengthen relationships.
Yeah, 100%. And just one other caveat that I'll add, if I do intend to use the information, it's usually within their own school district, and I will ask permission before I do that. Like, for example, I've done a whole data day for schools, for specific school districts, and I will ask for permission if they're okay if I use their data, because it's generally just their teachers or their counselors or their other administrators. But I always get permission for that as well. And then to Phyllis's point, I have done exactly what she suggested. Like, I've offered to go through the PAYS guide with them to be their technical assistants here locally. And I've done that with at least one school district from start to end of the PAYS guide. So we always offer that as an option. And, if you are a school district that's on the call and you want support, I would say reach out to your local SEA, your local coalitions, or reach out for some support and some connections from Alise. Sorry, Alise, but she'll be able to connect you with someone locally. Absolutely. If you're interested in finding someone.
Yes.
Okay, so moving on to lesson 4, and as promised, here is where you're going to start determining your focus BPAs, okay? So here is where you're going to start prioritizing, and this snippet is right from the module, so I wanted to make sure that you could see it and really feel how this is going to feel when you complete this PLP lesson. So here is, like I said, as promised, here's your 1, 2, 3, 4 magnitude, time, trend, severity comparison. That's going to walk you through why that's important, what you should look at, because a lot of times people want to just focus on one, but it's really the work that you're doing. And if anybody's currently working on a DDAP needs assessment, this is going to feel very real to you. But when you are doing this work, it's important to look at a couple different factors and not just focus on one. So a lot of times we want to look at the comparison, like, where do I compare to the rest of the county, or where do I compare to the state? And that is an important part, but it is not the only part, right? We need to look and see what issues that are facing youth that are severe, they have severe consequences. We need to look and see what's happening over time, because maybe we are worse than the state and a county, but are we getting better? Have we been improving? This is all important information that's going to help you tell your story when you get to that point, and it's also going to help you to drive decisions for sure. So the next part is lesson 5, and that is going to be on assessing. So this is going to be, if you do coalition work, this is the gaps analysis. This is whether you're seeing what you have that's impacting your priority issues. So whatever you've identified as your priority BPAs, whatever you've prioritized as your priority risk factors or protective factors, this is where you're going to break it down a little bit further. You're going to be able to see what programs are already happening, what practices are already happening, and what strategies are already happening. So this is an important part to see what's already impacting those BPAs. Then you're going to move on to lesson 6, and this is where it pays to explore. So here is where you've already identified your focus BPAs and your risk and protective factors, right? You've done that in lesson 4. So now what you're going to do is you're going to start seeing, okay, I know what's missing from my community, my school district, my county. I already know what's missing because I've already done my assessment. Now I need to know what I should be looking at next. What should I see? What could impact these BPAs that's not already happening? And sometimes you might identify that something's happening to impact your BPA, but at what level? Is it one community in your county? Is it one school district within your county? Is it only for targeted individuals? What is actually happening and what's missing? So you might want to think, oh, I need to adjust this and decide on a universal program, right? Or something that's a little bit next level. So this is also going to give you the opportunity to see what it means to be evidence-based. So you're going to pick an evidence-based program. That's the hope, right? This is going to give you some tools and some resources on where to go to find those evidence-based programs, but it's also going to give you a definition of evidence-based programs. And this might be important to you, especially as you're inviting new folks into your team and they're not maybe as tuned in to this process as you might be, or the rest of your team might be. So parents might not exactly know what it means to pick an evidence-based program, or some community members might not understand that. This is a great opportunity to educate them, and they're going to do that right here in lesson 6. So you're going to also take time during this lesson to complete the worksheet in module 4 of the PAYS guide. So in that module 4 PAYS guide, you're going to look at the module 4 of the PAYS guide, you're going to look at that worksheet, and it's going to walk you through fit, feasibility, and effectiveness. So I've got this program. I think it's a great one. Does it fit? Is it feasible? And what's the effectiveness? Like, what are the outcomes related to this as a program? So then we're going to move into lesson 7. And in lesson 7, you're going to determine who will develop your plan. So this is where you start creating an action plan. And I realize this is a little bit hard to read. So access that PAYS guide. You're going to find this in the 5th module, module 5 of the PAYS guide. It's going to break it down by how you should do each section. So here's where you're creating your action plan. And to my Communities That Care folks, this is going to sound very familiar, but the creating an action plan is developing an executive summary, writing an introduction, your profile, your results, and your goals. What are your recommendations? And then anything additional that you have in there that would be important to telling your story. So each one of these sections is broken down with, why it's important to do this section and some additional subsections that you might want to consider, but also some suggested information to include. So it really does make it very easy for you to write an action plan for your community or your school district or your county. So from this perspective, this is where you're going to want to start to have this organized plan, and this is where you're going to, this is where you'll start telling your story. So what you're going to want to do is involve other folks. Maybe they're not already part of your team, maybe they are, but this is where you want to engage them as well with the help of drafting this action plan. Finally, we want to talk about sharing. So I've got some groups on there that make some really good audiences for you and us to share the PAYS data once we've gone through the PAYS guide from front to back. We've got caregivers, the community, the PTAs, your other parent groups, policymakers, funders, prevention boards, your coalitions, your CTCs, your school administration, and then there they are, the youth. We want to make sure that we share this information out with youth. So now, we had mentioned this before, but one of my question now for you in the chat is, go ahead and put in there how you are involving youth in the PAYS process. So if you've, Phyllis and I were talking about this earlier, we want to hear from you. How are you involving youth in the PAYS process? I will say that, one thing that we do is, we connect with our SAD groups, because there's still some of those floating around in our county, and they're always looking for some information to be shared with students. And what we will do is we will have them look at the youth in those groups. We'll have them look at the Pennsylvania Youth Survey data. They'll determine maybe some action steps. It's nothing as intense as the PAYS guide. But there's nothing wrong with having a youth group complete the PAYS guide from start to finish, as far as I can see. But we make it a little bit simpler. We pick out some key parts of the PAYS guide. We have them complete those, and then they come up with a plan or a campaign or something to impact something that they've identified as an opportunity. Wendy said, teaching them about PAYS and how important it is. Understanding risk and protective factors is great. I love that suggestion. That is a huge part of the PAYS and something that we should involve youth in for sure. Task force next month, youth development task force, that's great. They're high school students from all 9 school districts, so that's great. Thanks for sharing, Timothy. So Bree is saying to incorporate that into programming, which I think is really good, because it's something. Bree works for the same SCA I work for, so I know what she's referring to. But yes, for BotFin Life Skills, we include real PAYS data. For Power of Youth, we include real PAYS data. So it's really information right from the students in the PAYS that we're sharing back with them to explain to them. Usually we do that in reference of, not everybody's vaping, or not everybody's smoking, or not everybody's drinking alcohol, to sort of show that the normal behavior is that normalizing the behavior of not using a substance. CTC has students as part of our team. Love that. And then I think it was Amy who said that she's not using it. Hopefully you're getting some ideas to incorporate these things into your own work. We do try to offer some insights in this First Wednesday webinar as well. So we're always looking for folks from the field to share some of their experiences. So if you're one of those folks and you'd like to highlight the work of your students on an upcoming First Wednesday webinar, please reach out to Alise. Again, I'm easy to pass the buck to Alise, right, Alise?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody, we will have a youth First Wednesday webinar, and every time we've had a youth, it's great information, and people really get on board and get excited, because we all want to engage their voices, and it's very important that we share that information, because the state is very broad, and different populations and different levels of activity of engagement with the youth. And we're really excited to dive into that. I just did a youth leadership summit. I know that was in Clearfield and Jefferson counties. And, I encourage the students even to ask their superintendents for their district level report and use that and see what they wanted to work on. And if they could see some improvement from administration to administration. So there is a lot of opportunities, and we love to share that with the entire group. So we are looking for people, obviously, to come and promote what you do with your youth in relation to the PAYS data.
Yeah, and we always get positive feedback from those webinars. So, I mean, all of our webinars are great, but they love to hear from the kids, and it's a really great opportunity to put some things into practice. And as we hear from Amy, she was looking for some support in that. So great. So that wraps up my conversation on the PAYS guide. I hope that was helpful to everyone. We really wanted to be there to support you as you're going through the module. We wanted to make sure that you had the tools and the resources that you need. Go to the EPIS website. Go ahead and find the PAYS guide, download it, and then start your module. And we're here to answer questions now, but we're here to answer questions anytime. So if you have any questions about the PAYS guide, please reach out to us and we will be there to support you. Thank you, Alise, for putting your email into the chat. Please reach out to Alise if you have any questions for any of us, and she will make sure that we get those questions answered for you. Alise?
Yep, that is it. I think that sounds great. And I hope that all of you had something new that you learned today. And I just wanted to reiterate that our goal of this, and all of you probably know sitting in this webinar, we have a varied group that is, new people who are just engaging, and we have seasoned people, and we're looking to make sure that we can meet the needs across the board. So keep that in mind. Keep joining us. I hope you learn something every time that you join a First Wednesday webinar, and we are open to any feedback, which will then probably lead into Sophia probably has did you do the evaluation?
Oh, yes. So we'll put the evaluate. Oh, she already put it in the chat. And I did want to give people the opportunity to ask questions too. So if you do have a question, throw that in the question and answer, throw it in the chat. We're watching that now. But as you are formulating any additional questions, I will let you know that we are ready to go for December 4th at 1 p.m. We will be doing a 4th grade survey hindsight, and then we'll also be doing a celebration of PAYS in the field. So if you know somebody that's using the PAYS in a great way and you want them to feature, or you yourself want to be featured, we're happy to accommodate that. Please reach out to Alise and we'll make sure you get on the agenda, because we really want to highlight the work that all of you are doing. And at the end of the calendar year, it feels like a great place to do so. So I won't be on that one, but Alise, Phyllis, Sophia, I'm sure Jeff and Jordan will be there as well. Thanks for joining us, by the way. So please, please, please join us on December 4th at 1 p.m. Eval's in the chat. Thank you, Sophia. Take the survey. If you've got PAYS questions, there's the QR code. And it doesn't look like any questions have come over in the Q&A. Doesn't look like anything in the chat. I appreciate you all so much. Have a great November, and we'll see you all in December.